Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now. Novak Djokovic recently commented on Alcaraz copying his serve, and the current world number one has responded. The story really kicked off when Carlos showed up in Melbourne with this new serving motion. Fans who pay attention to the technical details immediately noticed something was different. His action looked more compact than before. The way he positioned his racket seemed familiar. And then it clicked for everyone watching. This looks just like Djokovic's serve, like really similar. People started posting side-by-side comparisons on social media, showing Carlos and Novak serving, and you could barely tell the difference in their motions. It became such a big topic that reporters knew they had to ask both players about it, because how could they not? This is the kind of storyline that makes tennis fun. Djokovic got asked about it first after his opening round match. He destroyed Pedro Martinez in straight sets and was in a good mood during his press conference, which made his response even better. He didn't get defensive or weird about it. Instead, he went full comedy mode. He said that as soon as he saw Carlos's new serve, he sent him a message saying they needed to talk about copyrights. Like, straight up told him they needed to discuss intellectual property rights for the serving motion. That's already funny enough, but Djokovic didn't stop there. He said when he saw Carlos in person at the tournament, he told him they needed to negotiate a percentage of his winnings. Every single ace that Carlos hits, Djokovic expects a tribute. He wants his cut. And then he finished by saying they'd see if Carlos sticks to the agreement. The whole thing was delivered with this playful smile that made it clear he was joking around, but also kind of serious in a funny way. Now imagine being Carlos and hearing that your rival just publicly demanded royalties for your serve. You're trying to focus on winning the Australian Open and completing the career Grand Slam. And Novak Djokovic is out here talking about copyright infringement and percentage cuts like he's your business manager. It's hilarious. And the beauty of it is that Carlos had to address it eventually because reporters weren't going to let this go. They wanted to know what he thought about the accusations. They wanted to know if he intentionally copied Djokovic. They wanted to hear his side of this whole controversy that's taken over tennis social media. Carlos's first response came during his pre-tournament press conference before the Australian Open even started. A reporter asked him about the changes to his serve, and you could see Carlos knew exactly where this was going. He had this knowing smile on his face before the question even finished. He literally interrupted the reporter and said something like, "You wanted to say it's really similar to Djokovic's serve, right? I know you want to say that." He was fully aware of the comparisons, and he wasn't trying to dodge them or pretend they didn't exist. He acknowledged it right away, which is smart, because trying to deny it would have been pointless when everyone can see the videos. But here's the important part. Carlos made it very clear that he wasn't thinking about copying Djokovic when he made the changes. He said he didn't set out to replicate Novak's serve. The similarity was coincidental. He explained that everyone has to make changes and work on small details to improve. For him, the serve is something he wants to get better at every single year, every single tournament. He's constantly working on it. And during the off-season, he adjusted his motion slightly to make it feel more comfortable, more fluid, more relaxed, and better timed. Those were the words he used. He wanted the serve to help him perform at a higher level. And if it happened to end up looking like one of the greatest servers in tennis history, well, that's not exactly a bad thing, is it? Carlos also admitted that he can see the similarities now that people have pointed them out. It's not like he's blind to it. When you watch the videos side by side, yeah, they look really similar. But he maintained that it wasn't intentional. Sometimes in sports, different athletes arrive at similar techniques because those techniques are effective. There are only so many ways to optimize a tennis serve if you're trying to maximize power, accuracy, and consistency. So maybe Carlos and his team stumbled onto a motion that happens to resemble Djokovic's serve because that particular motion works really well for the kind of game Carlos wants to play. That's totally plausible. After Carlos beat Tommy Paul in the fourth round to advance to the quarterfinals, he got asked about this whole situation again. By this point, Djokovic's copyright jokes had gone viral. Everyone knew about the supposed agreement they had, and Carlos was ready with his response. He said, "Yeah, I heard about that. I have the contract over there, but I haven't seen him yet. Just perfect. He's playing along with the joke. He's treating it like there's an actual legal document somewhere that they need to sign. The whole exchange between these two has been so good because neither of them is taking it too seriously, but they're also both having fun with it and giving the media and fans something entertaining to follow." Carlos also explained that during the preseason, somebody brought up how his new motion looked similar to Djokovic's serve. He wasn't even aware of it at first. He made the changes based on what felt right to him, and then someone else pointed out the resemblance. That's kind of the perfect scenario for this type of situation. It shows he wasn't deliberately trying to imitate anyone. He was just working on his game and happened to land on something that works well, and that thing just so happens to look like what one of the all-time greats does. What makes this story even more interesting is that Carlos's new serve has actually been working incredibly well for him. He's reached the quarterfinals of the Australian Open without dropping a single set. His serving stats have been excellent. He's averaging around 70% first serves, which is really good. He's winning close to 80% of points on his first serve. He's even winning 68% of points on his second serve, which is impressive. After his match against Tommy Paul, Carlos said he's surprising himself with how well the serve is performing. He mentioned that he checks the statistics after every set, and in all 4 matches he's played so far, the serve has been a really important weapon for him. So whether he copied Djokovic or not, the serve is clearly helping him win matches. The technical changes Carlos made are actually pretty interesting when you look at them closely. He used to have a longer, more extended motion, where his arm would face the back fence during his preparation. That made the action slower and potentially less efficient. Now, he's shortened the motion. He bends his wrist and elbow to get the racket into position more quickly. This creates better kinetic energy and makes the whole serve faster and smoother. Fewer moving parts means more consistency, and according to Carlos, it just feels better. It feels more natural. He's not fighting against his own body to get the serve where it needs to be. Everything flows together in a way that makes sense for him. Now let's talk about what Carlos said regarding Djokovic's actual serve, because this is where things get really insightful. After one of his matches, Carlos was asked to give his opinion on why Djokovic's serve is so effective. And his answer was really detailed and showed just how much respect he has for Novak's serving ability. He said that Djokovic doesn't hit the fastest serve out there. It's not about raw power, but it's super accurate. You can't read it. It's really difficult to predict where it's going. The placement is so close to the lines. And then he said something interesting about how the ball is like a sleeper when it touches the ground. It just skids and stays low and makes it even harder to return. All of these factors combine to make Djokovic's serve one of the best in the game, even though it's not the hardest serve. Sometimes precision matters more than speed, and Carlos understands that. This is actually a really mature perspective from a 22-year-old. He's not saying Djokovic has the best serve because it's the fastest or the most powerful. He's recognizing the technical excellence and the strategic brilliance behind it. Djokovic places his serves perfectly. He disguises them well. He keeps returners guessing, and the result is that even though you know it's coming, you can't do much about it. That's the kind of serve Carlos apparently wanted to develop for himself. Not necessarily the same exact motion, but the same effectiveness, the same ability to win free points and set up easy patterns, the same capacity to put pressure on opponents without relying purely on speed. The timing of all this is perfect because Carlos and Djokovic could potentially meet in the final at Melbourne. They're in opposite halves of the draw, which means if both of them keep winning, we're going to get a championship match between them. And if that happens, We'll get to see the student versus the teacher scenario that everyone keeps talking about. Djokovic joked about it himself, saying it'll be interesting to see if Carlos sticks to their agreement about paying royalties for every ace. Can you imagine if they actually meet in the final and Carlos serves a bunch of aces with this new Djokovic-inspired motion? The storyline writes itself. The memes would be incredible. Tennis fans would lose their minds. But there's also a serious side to all this. Carlos is trying to accomplish something historic at this tournament. He's already won the French Open twice, Wimbledon twice, and the US Open twice. But he's never won the Australian Open. His best results in Melbourne have been 2 quarterfinal appearances, and that's it. If he wins this tournament, he becomes the youngest man ever to complete the career Grand Slam. That's a massive achievement. That's the kind of thing that defines a legacy, and he's trying to do it with a revamped serve that he's still getting used to, even though it's clearly working so far. The pressure on Carlos right now is enormous. Everyone's watching to see if he can finally break through in Melbourne. Everyone's analyzing his new serve and debating whether it's too similar to Djokovic's. Everyone's wondering if he can handle the expectations without Juan Carlos Ferrero as his coach. And on top of all that, he has to deal with questions about copyright agreements and royalty payments every time he does a press conference. Most players would crack under that kind of scrutiny and pressure, but Carlos seems to be thriving. He's relaxed. He's confident. He's playing great tennis. And he's handling the media attention with humor and grace. What's cool about the whole Djokovic serve situation is that it shows the respect and camaraderie between top players. Djokovic could have been annoyed or dismissive about Carlos changing his serve to look similar. He could have made it weird or competitive in an uncomfortable way, but instead, he made jokes about it. He had fun with it. He treated it as a compliment, which is exactly what it is. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? If someone's copying your technique, it means they think your technique is worth copying. It means they respect what you've accomplished, and they want to achieve similar success. And Carlos handled it perfectly too. He didn't get defensive. He didn't try to deny the obvious similarities. He acknowledged them, explained his process, and then made jokes right back at Djokovic. The contract line was brilliant. The whole exchange has been a masterclass in how athletes can have rivalries while still being friendly and respectful. These guys compete at the highest level. They've played in Grand Slam finals against each other. They both want to be number one, but they can still joke around and have a good relationship off the court. That's what makes tennis special sometimes. There's also something to be said about how willing Carlos is to make changes and take risks. A lot of players get to the top of the sport, and then they're afraid to change anything because they don't want to mess up what's already working. But Carlos isn't like that. Even though he's won 6 Grand Slams and been number 1 in the world, he's still looking for ways to improve. He's still tweaking his technique. He's still experimenting with new approaches. That mindset is what separates good players from great players. The willingness to evolve and adapt even when you're already winning is crucial for long-term success. And the serve wasn't the only thing Carlos worked on during the off-season. He also added weight to his racket. He trained extensively in his hometown in Spain. He brought in high-level practice partners like Flavio Caboli to push him during training sessions. He was working on Christmas Eve while most people were relaxing with their families. The guy is obsessed with getting better, and the serve changes are just one piece of a larger puzzle. He's building himself into the most complete player he can possibly be, and if that means his serve ends up looking like Djokovic's, then so be it. One of the reporters at the Australian Open asked Carlos if he thought the serve changes were risky, given that the tournament was starting so soon. Like, was he worried about making technical adjustments right before such an important event? And Carlos basically said no, because he's constantly making small changes anyway. He's always experimenting. He's always trying new things. For him, improvement isn't something you do once during the
Llevo
off-season
trabajando
and then
con una
stop.
psicóloga desde
It's an
2019, a
ongoing
finales de
process that
2019,
happens
principios
every day,
de
every tournament,
2020
every practice
y bueno,
session.
al final
That's the mentality of
tanto
someone
mi
who's
equipo
going
como
to be
yo
dominant
sabíamos la
for a long
importancia que era
time. The Australian Open has become the perfect stage for this whole serve controversy to play out. Every match Carlos plays, people are watching his serve extra closely. Every ace he hits generates comments about Djokovic and their supposed copyright agreement. Every press conference features questions about the similarities. It's become one of the main storylines of the tournament, right up there with Sinner going for a three-peat and Djokovic chasing his 25th Grand Slam. And Carlos is handling all of it with such maturity and humor that it's actually making him more likable. Think about how different this could have gone. If Carlos had been defensive or annoyed about the comparisons, it would have created tension. If Djokovic had been possessive or critical about it, it would have turned into a negative story. But instead, both of them leaned into the humor and made it entertaining. They gave fans and media something fun to talk about. They showed personality and wit, and they made tennis feel more human and accessible in the process. Not everything has to be serious and intense. Sometimes you can just laugh about the fact that your serve looks like someone else's serve and move on with your life. The whole situation also highlights how much tennis fans love this kind of content. People eat it up when players show personality. They love banter. They love inside jokes. They love when athletes don't take themselves too seriously all the time. The clips of Djokovic talking about copyright and Carlos referencing the contract have gotten millions of views on social media. Everyone's sharing them, everyone's commenting, everyone's having fun with it. And that's good for the sport. It brings in casual fans who might not normally follow tennis that closely, but enjoy the drama and entertainment value. Carlos is now in the quarterfinals, and his next match is against Alex de Minaur, the Australian hope who's never made it past the quarterfinals at his home slam. That's going to be a tough match. De Minaur has the crowd behind him. He's playing well. He's motivated, but Carlos should still be the favorite, especially with how well his serve is working. If he gets through that match, he could face Alexander Zverev or Daniil Medvedev in the semifinals, and then potentially Sinner or Djokovic in the final. The path to the title is brutal, but Carlos has shown he can handle the pressure. What's interesting is that even though the serve has been a big story, Carlos has made it clear that he's focused on other aspects of his game too. He talked about wanting to maintain his focus throughout entire matches, which is something he worked on specifically. He mentioned his backhand return needs improvement, especially in windy conditions. He's thinking about every detail of his game, not just the serve. That's what champions do. They don't get obsessed with one thing. They work on everything simultaneously and try to be excellent across the board. The heat is also going to be a factor in his upcoming matches. Tuesday's quarterfinal is supposed to be brutally hot in Melbourne. The roof might get closed, which changes the conditions entirely. But when Carlos was asked about it, he basically said he'll deal with whatever comes his way. He can only control what he can control. If it's hot, he'll play in the heat. If the roof is closed, he'll play indoors. He's not going to let external factors affect his mindset or his performance. That's the kind of mental toughness you need to win Grand Slams. People keep talking about whether Carlos will stick with this new serving motion long term or if it's just an experiment. But based on how well it's working, why would he change it? He's winning matches. He's hitting aces. He's getting free points. The stats are excellent. Even if it does look like Djokovic's serve, who cares? If it works, it works. Tennis is about winning matches, not about having the most original technique. Some of the greatest players in history have borrowed elements from other players. It's how the sport evolves. You see something that works for someone else, you adapt it to your own game, and you make it better. And let's be real, there are worse players to emulate than Novak Djokovic. The guy has won 24 Grand Slams. He's one of the greatest players of all time. His serve, while not the biggest weapon in his arsenal, is incredibly effective and has been a huge part of his success. If Carlos can incorporate some of those elements into his own game while still maintaining his natural aggressive style and athleticism, he's going to be even more dangerous than he already is. That's a scary thought for the rest of the tour. The relationship between Carlos and Djokovic is fascinating to watch develop. There's clearly mutual respect there. Djokovic sees Carlos as the future of tennis, maybe even as his successor at the top of the sport. And Carlos looks up to Djokovic as someone who's achieved everything and knows what it takes to sustain excellence over a long period of time. They can compete fiercely on court and still have this friendly dynamic off court. That's rare in professional sports, where rivalries often turn personal or bitter. As the tournament continues, the serve story is probably going to keep coming up. Every time Carlos does a press conference, someone's going to ask about it. Every time he hits an ace, commentators are going to mention the Djokovic similarities. Every time the two players are in the same area at Melbourne Park, people are going to joke about copyright agreements and royalty payments. And honestly, that's fine. It's a fun storyline. It's harmless. And it's bringing attention to the technical aspects of the sport in a way that's accessible to casual fans. What Carlos has done here, intentionally or not, is create a conversation about how players develop and improve. He's shown that even when you're at the top, you can still learn from others. You can still make adjustments. You can still strive to be better. And if that means your serve ends up looking like someone else's serve, that's just part of the process. There's no shame in it. In fact, it's smart. Why reinvent the wheel when you can study what works for the best players and incorporate those lessons into your own game? The Australian Open quarterfinals are going to be intense. Carlos is 3 wins away from achieving something historic. 3 wins away from completing the career Grand Slam. 3 wins away from cementing his status as one of the all-time greats at just 22 years old. And he's doing it with a new coach, a new serving motion, and the entire tennis world watching his every move. The pressure is immense, but if anyone can handle it, it's Carlos Alcaraz. He's proven time and time again that he rises to the occasion when the stakes are highest. So what's the final verdict on this whole serve copying controversy? It's not really a controversy at all. It's 2 great players having fun with a coincidental similarity. It's Carlos making smart technical adjustments that happen to resemble what one of the greats does. It's Djokovic being a good sport and joking about it instead of making it weird. And it's tennis fans getting entertainment value out of a situation that could have been awkward, but instead became hilarious. Everyone wins. Carlos gets a better serve. Djokovic gets to flex his sense of humor. And we all get to watch the drama unfold at one of the biggest tournaments of the year. If you want to stay updated on everything happening with Carlos Alcaraz at the Australian Open, including whether he pays Djokovic those royalties or finally wins his first title in Melbourne, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about the serve situation. Do you think Carlos intentionally copied Djokovic, or was it just a coincidence? And do you think he can complete the career Grand Slam this week? If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with other tennis fans who need to hear about this hilarious storyline. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next